Thanks a lot, Philip, and also ICPAC for organizing this session, which I think is really a very important session for us to review and learn together what we see as really the impact of climate change in the livestock sector in Eastern Africa. You've already done the introduction of me and where I work. There's no point to go there. I just want to kickstart our discussion here by first saying that in general, agriculture sector, as we all know, is one of the most sensitive sector to climate change. I think this we can all attest to it. Uh, Again, particularly looking at the livestock sector, the climate change impact is much more felt, particularly if you look at Eastern Africa. We are looking at grassland and rangeland productivity, and we all know this is where majority of our meat, milk is really coming from. I'm not downplaying the role that it has in the poultry and piggery sector. That I will say a few words about that later on. But it is also very important for us to note not to throw all the blame to climate change. I think this point needs to be very clear. There are also other interacting factors which are also contributing to dynamic changes in our livestock production system in Eastern Africa. And here, I'm talking about the rapid population growth that we have in our region. And also, we know with this rapid population growth, particularly in towns and urban, peri-urban areas, also puts a lot of pressure on animal source foods. And these are coming from our livestock production system, of course. Now, some key facts, just this I know the colleagues from ILRI maybe will present more into detail. I wanted to share some key global facts here. We know that in the livestock sector, the greenhouse gas emission, the gases that we are talking about here, are nitrous oxide, methane, and carbon dioxide. And overall, globally, the livestock sector is contributing about 7.1 gigatons equivalent of carbon dioxide per annum, which represent, as we know, about 14.5% of the total human-induced global greenhouse gas emission. And within the livestock sector, if you unpack it, it is the beef and cattle milk production, the dairy, that contribute majority of our emission. That is 41-20%, respectively. But of concern also is the production of pig meat, poultry meat, and eggs, which are contributing 9% and 8% to the sector emission. This is just to tell you how the global figure would come and translate into East Africa. Now, in East Africa, we all know that the all projection point towards increase in poultry production and also pig meat production. This is to meet the increasing demand in our region. So with that increase, of course, there will also be increase in the emissions that goes into, affecting climate change. Now, some of the direct impact that direct and indirect impact of climate change in our sector that we feel we are feeling in Eastern Africa. The direct one, as we all know, there is already now increasing frequency of extreme weather events. And here I'm talking about, of course, drought and floods. I think if you look on a time scale, the frequency has continuously been now rapid. I will show you a map later, just for you to appreciate what it means in Kenya. And with the increasing droughts and floods, of course, there are complications that comes with the livestock production. Particularly, the region is suffering significant production losses as a result of that, with increasing temperatures. I will as you know, change in water availability and fodder quality and quantity, distribution of different species. This, this we are witnessing. If you look in the rangelands, some of the areas are being taken up by non-palatable species. And this in the past were areas of open grazing with palatable pasture species there. Then the changes, the climatic changes are also bringing a lot of dynamics in the host pathogen interaction. And we are seeing emergence of new diseases and also epidemics. And here in the extensive system, which is largely practiced in Eastern Africa, this is really greatly affected. But in Eastern Africa also we have other production, the non-grazing system, which is more intensive. These are affected, but overall, not as much as you would call it in the extensive system, but more in terms of cost and of course disease also affects both of all the system. This is that just to showcase to you increase in temperature, what it does to the entire sector. Is basically elaborating the same issue that I earlier mentioned. So reduction in milk, meat, eggs, as we know the implication at household level in terms of food availability, animal source food, and also the income of those communities, particularly pastoral and agropastoral communities. Any factor which affects pasture and feed and water definitely affects the way that livelihood is managed. And here, it is true to say that most of the vulnerability of pastoral and agropastoral population in Eastern Africa, which is a majority of our livestock production, which holds the majority of our livestock production system, is affected by lack of water and pasture. And here, climate change is really a big culprit here. I already mentioned about emergence of diseases and animal health challenges, vector, and of course, with this, we have seen also migration and conflict in some areas. I want to pick out on a few vectors that are implicated or that are linked to climate change and livestock production in Eastern Africa. Here, if we look at the frequency of El Nino and Rift Valley fever, they are very closely correlated. Because with flooding, of course, the Culex mosquito that is a vector that spreads Rift Valley fever disease, the vector population, once it increases, the chances that Rift Valley fever outbreaks is witnessed is very high. And there's a very perfect correlation there. I think a lot of models have done that. So this is clearly can be attributed to climate change issues. Now, a number of studies have also reviewed climate change impact on ticks and tick-borne diseases. What is showing is that as the Eastern Africa become warmer and warmer, most of the tick and tick-borne diseases will move towards much more cooler and wetter areas. And here will pose more impact on livestock production. Already at the moment, there's already a strong burden that tick and tick-borne diseases poses to our livestock production in the region. Now, sassaflies that transmits, of course, trypanosomiasis is a vector that is also very sensitive to warming. And with warming climate, sassaflies may also shift their dynamics and distribution within Eastern Africa, even beyond Eastern Africa. And this, looking into the future, if the situation is not managed, may also pose threats to other areas. I pointed here T. rhodiense, which also has a problem with disease in human beings. Now, this is a picture which is we are all very familiar with in Eastern Africa, Horn of Africa. The current desert locust infestation of Eastern Africa. This you could easily attribute to climatic changes, and experts are continuously telling us that even now breeding areas, the condition seems to be now even favoring breeding in our region. But what does that mean in terms of moving forward with planning our livestock production in Eastern Africa? So these are really critical things that we have to start looking at, but there are challenges which are likely to continue posing threats to production in Eastern Africa, attributed to climate change. Now, very quickly, this is a map of Kenya that I wanted to share with you, showing forage condition index, thanks to NDMA and Texas A&M University that worked on this. They looked at the forage conditions from year 2000 to 2017. And look at how Kenya looks like. From the past 20 years, Kenya was much more greener. But as we come towards now 2015, and it picks out the different drought events that you see, drought of 2005, 2010, 2011, 2015, and 2017. So with this, it shows very clearly the impact of climate change in the country, and also looking at vegetation and forages, there is clearly impact on diversity of the available palatable species that we have. And now, very quickly, in terms of human, if you look at availability of forage and then food availability at household level, livestock feed availability and malnutrition in children have been seen to be very positively correlated. When there is enough feed availability, there's enough milk, meat at household level, and the malnutrition rate is lower. So this is very clearly also linking that the impact of climate change on grasslands can really impact a lot on livelihood of people and population. And here I'm again showing the impact on population in Eastern Africa. If you look at the undernourished people, the number continues to grow. I don't want, as I mentioned, it's not blaming climate change only, but most of these population are in pastoral agropastoral areas, livestock keeping population. So the distances to forages becomes more difficult, mortality of livestock is rampant, destitution is happening. So more and more people become under stress, undernourished, and food availability is difficult. And this couple, of course, as I mentioned, rapid population and economic growth. Now I want to end by quickly mentioning that conflict over natural resources is becoming more and more rampant thanks to this map from C1 that indicates the different areas within our region where resource-based conflict have been mapped. And this has clearly been linked to availability of forages or grazing areas. Now, as I end, I mentioned that I don't want to downplay the role that increase in temperatures the impact it has in the poultry sector within Eastern Africa. It is important to know that the poultry sector is very, very sensitive to also temperature increases. And as the sector grows, I think how we manage it is going to be very, very critical, particularly on how we reduce on the emission coming from the poultry sector and also the piggery sector. As I mentioned, I just wanted to do a quick snapshot. We're given only 10 minutes. It would have been better to go more deeply into how the feed itself in Eastern Africa is affecting production. But moderator, I will stop here, but we'll be happy to answer questions whenever that would come. So over to you.